is Ann Helmke, and I'm the director of the Peace Center here in San Antonio. Today is our 5th annual blessing of the Peacemakers here in San Antonio. We've been having it for 5 years, and it always begins at the National Season of Nonviolence, which has been happening much longer than 5 years. The National Season for Nonviolence begins January 30th, the anniversary date of Gandhi's assassination and death, and 64 days later at the anniversary of the assassination and death of Martin Luther King. This year is a significant year, 2010, because in the year 2000, the UN declared the first decade of the new millennium, 2000 through 2009, as the decade for the culture of nonviolence. The first year of that was a year of education, specifically in terms of the UDHR, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So here we are, 10 years later. I don't know if we're any more peaceful, but we're still working at nonviolence, and tonight is a real celebration of the people in San Antonio who are working for peace every day. And tonight we'll be also announcing our 3rd annual San Antonio Peace Laureate. It's actually 2 people, a husband and wife couple, Jane and Woody Tuck. And the Peace Laureates share their wisdom throughout San Antonio, and they have spent decades, 6 decades, working for peace. As far as we know, we're the only city in the United States who has our own Peace Laureates.
Jane's from a suburb of Pittsburgh, and Charles, who we also know as Woody, is from a town called Homer City, named after the poet. They met as college students at what is now called Indiana University of Pennsylvania, but was then called Indiana State Teachers College, and they both became teachers. Then something intervened, and that something was war. And a cousin came to him and said, "You know, Woody, I'm a Marine, and you wouldn't make a very good Marine, or a very good soldier, and there's a draft on. Have you thought of enlisting in the Air Force?" And he did. And the Tuck family spent the next 20 or so years as a military family. They raised their 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. They now have 5 grandchildren. They traveled all over the United States and spent 2 years in Turkey and enjoyed it. But then the Vietnam War happened. And at about that time, they got assigned to San Antonio, Texas. And Jane told me when she came to San Antonio, she found a group called Women for Peace. And she too became a woman for peace.
Jane and Woody, the first word that popped into my head was steadfast. Steadfast because of the longevity that they have committed to in terms of doing this work, of creating peace in our midst and peace in our world, and peace for San Antonio, because God knows we need it, and God knows we've needed their presence and their work and their steadfastness for our community, our families.
As Woody said, he was an Air Force officer, and I was becoming a peace activist. And these 2 elements don't often go well together. And they did cause some strains for us. But in September, Woody and I will have been married for 60 years. In 1968, I think it was, with the North Vietnam War, or the Vietnam War raging, we had come to the conclusion that this was an illegal and immoral war.
After many years in the Air Force, the exposure to the Vietnam War on TV, books, magazines, and so forth made me realize that this was a terrible war. Because I was an officer in the Medical Service Corps, I found some consolation that I was working with physicians and not killing people. With the My Lai massacre and the U.S. bombing of North Vietnamese hospitals, I soon felt that this could never lead to peace.
But then Woody came home one day and said, I have orders. We're going to San Antonio, Texas. I know there is one peace person in San Antonio because I had a peace magazine that always told some story about Tom Flower. And I said, as soon as we get to San Antonio, I'll be looking up this Tom Flower. And so we came here. And before I could find Tom Flower, a miracle had happened. I learned that there was a San Antonio Women for Peace group. So I rushed to that meeting